I can't believe I'm saying this, but on Saturday, July 4th, Kanye West announced on Twitter that he's running for president. Believe me, I reread that sentence like 10 times after writing it, and each time it only seemed more and more surreal, like I'm just waiting for Ashton Kutcher to jump out and say, "Hey, all of political science, you've been punked." I am admittedly dating myself with that reference.
Hi, Future Peter here. So literally just a couple of hours before this video was completely finished, I got a news alert that told me that Kanye West has dropped out, has bowed out from the presidential race. So long, we barely knew, yay. But I'm gonna go ahead and put this video up for a couple of reasons. One, it's been like 2 months since my last video, and you can blame this little cutie over here for that. But two, because this video doesn't just touch on Kanye specifically, but about independent spoilers in general, and about the prospect of a spoiler in 2020 specifically as well. So yeah, thanks Kanye for making my video outdated the day before it even comes out, but you know, I hope you guys still enjoy it and learn something from it.
To be fair, Kanye actually did say back in the 2015 VMAs that he was going to run for president in 2020, but everyone took that about as seriously as they would come to take Ye or Jesus is King. Soon after his announcement, he received the support of none other than Elon Musk, and the original announcement tweet has accrued over 1 million likes. And like clockwork, it queued a bunch of takes across the internet, most of which were not great. Before we go on, yes, I'm aware that there is a non-zero chance that this is all just a publicity stunt to promote an album, but there's good evidence that President Trump's run was initially just to promote his personal brand. Call it overcorrecting, but I'm going to proceed as if this is serious. So today I'm going to valiantly fight to try to inject some sanity into the discussion, probably fruitlessly since it's the internet and all, but let's talk about the real repercussions of a Kanye 2020 run. And spoiler alert, it's probably not what you're thinking. Okay, so first things first, let's just get this out of the way, rip the band-aid right off. He's not going to win. Both President Trump and Joe Biden have long surpassed the necessary delegate thresholds to become their respective parties' nominees. President Trump hit that mark back on March 17th, and Joe Biden hit it on June 5th. Barring something drastic like illness, death, or them backing out on their own accord, these are the major candidates for the 2020 election. It is literally impossible for Kanye to be a major party contender this year, and in the United States, not being a major party candidate has historically been a death knell for presidential aspirations. The most successful third-party candidate by both popular vote percentage as well as electoral college vote was Teddy Roosevelt in 1912, but he had the benefit of being both 1, insanely popular, and 2, a former president. As of writing, Kanye hasn't even filed with the Federal Elections Commission. Believe me, I downloaded the data and checked. And if he doesn't get up and going before the end of August, there will be only 4 states that he's eligible to officially run in as an independent candidate. So while he might have announced that he's running, legally, he ain't. Right now, it's all just talk. Of course, that's not really the concern many people have with this announcement. Many people are insisting the real danger here, a lot of air quotes in this paragraph, is not with Kanye winning. It's him stripping votes away from Joe Biden, leading to a Trump victory. In short, the worry is that Kanye is a spoiler candidate, and given how buddy-buddy he's been with President Trump in the past, one that some people suspect was encouraged to enter the race by the GOP with exactly that intent in mind. Spoiler candidates are people running under different parties or under no parties who appeal to a disproportionate share of one of the existing party's base. So, for example, back in 2000, Ralph Nader ran for president alongside the major party candidates Democrat Al Gore and Republican George W. Bush. You know, the infamous election that Bush clinched by barely eking out a victory in Florida. And by barely, I mean literally just by like less than 600 votes. In total, Nader won just shy of 100,000 Sunshine State voters. Later analyses suggested that 60% of these voters would have otherwise voted for Al Gore if Nader wasn't in the race, meaning that he would have won Florida and consequently would have won the presidency if Nader wasn't there. People are concerned that Kanye is going to take votes away from Joe Biden in a similar fashion. Specifically, a number of people think that Kanye will strip young black voters away from Biden, handing Trump the election. Frankly, though, the odds of that happening are pretty close to 0. I'm not going to say none because this is the year of continents on fire and murder hornets, so I'm not really willing to say that anything is impossible at this point. On the one hand, people aren't wrong in thinking that Kanye's fans are disproportionately Democratic and younger. Even after he announced his support for the president back in 2018, public opinion polls suggested that 43% of his fan base identified as Democratic compared to 18% that identified as Republican, and 53% of Kanye's fans are under the age of 40. But that's just among Kanye fans. Among everyone else, he's underwater on favorability. Only 29% of people in the United States have a favorable opinion of him compared to 44% who have an unfavorable opinion of him. The second thing that we have to consider when thinking about a spoiler candidate is the size of the effect. And even if it existed, it wouldn't be so large as to strip away Biden's current popular vote advantage. Let's go ahead and assume that Kanye successfully strips Joe Biden of every young black voter he otherwise would have gotten. Now, that assumption is incredibly problematic and wrong for reasons that I'll get to in a minute, but for the moment, let's just pause those concerns and follow through with the thought experiment, just taking it at the most extreme possibility. A lot of people assume that just because black voters tend to be overwhelmingly Democratic, the Democratic voters are overwhelmingly black, but that's not necessarily the case. Exit poll data from 2018 suggested that Democratic congressional candidates got about 53% of the House vote in 2018, and Hillary Clinton got 48% of the vote compared to Donald Trump's 46% back in 2016. How many percentage points of that, the 53 and the 48, could be chalked up to young black voters, those between the ages of 18 and 30? 15 percentage points? 10 percentage points? In both cases, about 2 to 2.5 percentage points. And since these voters would have hypothetically been going to a third-party candidate, it's not like they would have inflated the GOP vote totals. It still wouldn't have been enough to rob the Democrats of a popular vote victory. Now, the presidential race will undoubtedly narrow at least by a little bit as we get closer to Election Day, and nothing is ever 100% a sure thing, so be sure to vote as if your preferred candidate is like 20 points down in the polls by the time November comes around. But it doesn't look like a 2-point loss would be lethal for Biden if the race was going to happen today, either nationally or in critical swing states. But again, assuming that the youth vote in general and the black youth vote specifically would abandon Biden wholesale for Kanye is incredibly problematic. Embedded in the notion that Kanye will be a spoiler candidate is this idea that young voters, especially young black voters, are stupid, idealistic, or incapable of strategic voting, or some combination of the three. Like, if I were to announce that Carrie Underwood was running for president, would we start opining on how she's going to spoil the Trump vote with how she'll draw away young white voters from him? Probably not. And that's because in this case, people are correctly intuiting what a lot of the research says about celebrity involvement in politics. By and large, they do a great job at raising awareness for things, maybe convincing people to spend their money on certain things, but changing vote choices? The celebrity would have to have significant political appeal outside of just being famous. And right now, Kanye does not fit the bill. We jump to this conclusion with Kanye, though, because it taps into a number of prevalent racial biases against African Americans that persist in this country. It taps into a belief that black voters will myopically follow black candidates regardless of their policy positions, and also suggests that they, perhaps young voters more generally, can't appreciate the seriousness of this year's contest. Not only is it problematic in the sense of tapping into racial biases, it's also wrong. For one, we could just look at how well Republican Tim Scott performed with African Americans in South Carolina. It's estimated that he received only 15% of the black vote there. Policy and party identification matter. Plus, a lot of these takes severely underestimate youth enthusiasm to vote this cycle, not because they're excited to vote for Biden, but to vote Trump out. And I doubt that these people are going to be pretty eager to vote for a man who can't even keep his promises about when his next album is going to drop. Or, more seriously, a man who once said that slavery was a choice. Not exactly a position that's going to poll well these days. And while this video is about Kanye's potential as a spoiler specifically, this conclusion actually generalizes to the notion of Democratic spoiler in general. Recent polling suggests that nearly 90% of former Bernie Sanders supporters are behind Biden, as well as over 95% of Elizabeth Warren supporters. These people are rallying behind their second or even their third choice, because Democratic partisans in the electorate see 2020 as a referendum on President Trump. They don't feel like they have the luxury of voting their preference in a predominantly two-party system with stakes as high as they perceive them. And, they're right. If they want President Trump to lose, the best way is not only to diminish his chances by one vote through voting third party or sitting the election out, it's to diminish his chances by 2 votes by voting for the competitor who actually has a chance at winning. So, at the end of the day, if Kanye is running for president, and again, that's a really big if, it's not going to turn out like most would expect. Because, more likely than not, he wouldn't spoil the vote for Joe Biden, and he sure wouldn't actually win the contest outright. Call me heartless if you want, but that's just the truth of it.
How could you be so heartless?
I'm curious to see what you guys think about this, so be sure to drop some comments down below. Looking forward to reading all of them and responding to a few at the end of the next video. And if you enjoyed this video, I hope you consider liking and sharing it. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more videos on our endlessly fascinating social world. As always, a huge thank you to the channel supporters on Patreon, including Knowing Better and Joel, who were this video's research assistants. Your donations legitimately helps me buy the caffeine, the books, and the newspaper subscriptions that make researching these videos possible. And also the subscription for the fancy new B-roll footage. Look at this serene landscape, just so pretty. And I can only afford to put that in front of your eyeballs thanks to your help on Patreon. And as a thank you, depending on how much you donate, you'll either get early content, your name at the end card, or a shout out. So if you're able to help out, you can click the link down in the description or at the card at the end of the video. I really appreciate it. I'm really not trying to make a habit of skipping video responses, but the last video I put out was almost 2 months ago, so the stuff there is a bit dated. Look, y'all, I'm not gonna lie. It's tough being a work-from-home parent in the middle of COVID-19 while finishing up your 450-page dissertation on video games. I can't and won't make any promises on how often I can put these video ups, but things have quieted down enough that hopefully I can do them with a little bit more regularity. So with that, I'd just like to say thank you so much for your support and for watching, and I'll see you next time.